Is everything working? Just gonna wait to see if some people are gonna show up before I start talking. Hello. Seviper283. Hi everyone. Glad to see some of you are coming. Can you hear me properly? Low volume. Let me try to fix that. So is this better? Sound problems. Describe these sound problems. Can you hear me better now? It should be. It's better now. Okay, good. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to see so many of you here. I can't. Oh, so 63 viewers currently. That's very nice. So yeah, I guess most of you have heard the news already that we reached 100,000 subscribers by, I think that was yesterday, right? Which is crazy. So I wanted to do this live stream and talk to you directly, and thank you all for subscribing, for the fact that you keep watching my videos, that you like the videos, that you comment and have these wonderful discussions in the comment section, that you share the videos. It really means so much to me. I can't believe that so many people are even interested in what I have to say, but it is very, very inspiring, and it is the reason that I want to keep doing these videos. It really is amazing to know that you're there and to have this community in which I can communicate with you and you can communicate amongst each other. It's really just wonderful. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for your congratulations. And so I was just gonna, maybe I can answer some of your questions. I'm gonna try to keep up with this chat here. But also, of course, I would like to thank my patrons who keep supporting me. I say this in most of my videos, but without my patrons, I wouldn't be able to make these videos in the way that I am. The monetary support from my patrons is really what's helping me buy the books and you know, be able to do the research and produce the videos in the way that I am. So I am eternally grateful for everyone who supports me in any way, if it's through Patreon or just by watching my videos. And I would just like to say also that I am so thankful for not just the community on this channel itself, but also the fact that there's this community that's being created amongst creators on YouTube itself. So you've seen me collaborate with people like Justin Sledge from Esoterica. I've done collaborations with Zevi from Seekers of Unity. I'm doing stuff with Al-Muqaddima, with Angela Puka from Angela Symposium. So just to thank all of those people also for creating such a great community and also being really inspiring, and the fact that we help each other so much with this content. It really is such a wonderful thing that we are able to provide this kind of content for people, educational content, and spread knowledge on topics that in a lot of cases is so misunderstood in wider society. I'm going to take a look at some of your questions here. Let me see. Sunday Wednesday asks, what got you interested in studying religion? I've been interested in religion and mythology and stuff like that for as long as I can remember. I didn't start out by studying religion. I actually started out by studying international relations. So I was interested in politics and NGOs and things like this. And I've talked about this in a previous Q&A, but as I was trying to get my points for my degree in that, I took a course on religion, and already having an interest in that, of course. I talked about this also in my interview with Seekers of Unity, that as I was studying international relations, I would often find myself between classes in the library reading about different religions. And so I took a class on religion and immediately just realized that this is for me, basically. I was good at it without bragging, like it just came naturally to me, and it was just so interesting and important that since then I haven't been able to let it go, basically. What's your name? My name is Philip with an F. So Philip Holm is my last name. I'm from Sweden. Let's see. Do you think psychedelics have had any influence in Islam? I mean, there is certain evidence that certain substances were used historically in Sufism, for example. We have, it also depends on what you define as a psychedelic, but we have examples of cannabis being smoked, of opium and things like this. Mostly that wouldn't be considered a psychedelic necessarily, but those have been commonly used in order to help in the spiritual practice alongside things like coffee, but I think most people wouldn't consider that a psychedelic either. Bring me the juice. Asks, will we see some video on Orthodox Christianity or pagan religions? Orthodox Christianity, definitely. I want to get into more Christianity. I think the Orthodox tradition is the one that is probably the least talked about, and there's some really interesting connections to some of the other topics I've discussed when it comes to mysticism. There's the hesychasm tradition, for example, in Eastern Orthodoxy, with people like Gregory Palamas, which I am planning to do videos on eventually, because that stuff's just so fascinating. But I always need to do proper research before I get into stuff that I'm not necessarily as experienced with as I am with certain other subjects. Do you follow a particular religion? This is one of the most common questions I get, of course. I've answered this question in a previous Q&A also. The most basic answer is no, I don't. I am born into a Christian country culturally, so I'm sort of born and raised in a culture that is infused with Christianity in various ways, and so I recognize that is part of my DNA in a sense, but I don't necessarily identify as a Christian in the sense of adhering to the theological tenets of mainstream Christianity. So I at the moment I don't follow any particular religion, I would say. Ashkar Ali, you take care as well. I'm glad to see you here, and I hope I will see you in the future in future comments as well. Omama Ataturk asks, do you think atheism is a religion? I don't know, that's such a difficult, depends on how we define terms. Generally, I would say no, atheism is more of a, the lack of a belief in a God. I think humans, though, have a tendency to find themselves in social situations where they have certain common beliefs together and they share those beliefs with each other, and eventually that looks a lot like what a religion looks like. But in basic terms, atheism, I would not necessarily consider that a religion in that sense, I guess. But that's we could have that discussion for a long time. So yes, Adam Elliott, I don't know how many of you have seen the last post I did earlier today. So I actually have 2 videos coming this week. One is coming on Thursday and will be a video on Spinoza and Spinoza's God. The title is basically What is Spinoza's God? And that is a collaboration that I'm doing with Zevi from Seekers of Unity. He already did a video on Spinoza last week with Justin from Esoterica, but this week I'm doing one as well. And I'm going to be talking about Spinoza generally, but in particular about his ideas about God and questions of whether he can be considered an atheist or a pantheist or a God-intoxicated man, as some people have called him. There is a lot of disagreements about Spinoza in history, about who he was, what he really said, and I will be tackling that to some degree. The second video that's coming out this week, I don't think it's a secret. I think I can talk about it. It's a collaboration with Angela Puka, Dr. Angela Puka from the channel Angela Symposium, and in my video at least, I will be talking about Sufism. Surprise. But in particular, we're talking about Sufism's relationship to Islam. So questions like, is Sufism a part of Islam? The most general question, and in what way is it a part of Islam? And what does that relationship look like, both historically and today? That's going to be the video that comes out on Sunday, God willing. So 2 videos this week. I hope you guys are excited about that. I saw a question. Super Duper Boy 2, will you be making any more music with Morten Hillbom? I hope so. I really admire Morten, and I consider him a good friend, and he's an amazingly talented percussionist. As soon as I need someone to play percussion, that he's the first person I think of. So if I decided, then definitely I will be working on him in the future as well. Let's see. Do a video on Wahhabism. I will do a video on Wahhabism. I'm planning videos on Ibn Taymiyyah, on Wahhabism, on Salafism, just diving into various aspects of and various branches and movements within Islam. But I always want to, of course, represent different movements in a fair and respectful way as possible, and that goes for those movements as well. And so I want to do my research properly, which I am currently doing. Of course, I've studied Islam for many years, but still, like, you need to, since I focus mainly on Sufism, I'm not as much of an expert on Salafism, for example, so I need to brush up on my knowledge on that. But those videos are definitely coming. Hassan Ahmed asks, why do you think mystic traditions from all over the world, irrespective of time and place, have radically similar views? That's the million-dollar question. We talked about this in my conversation with Seekers of Unity. I think there are a number of options that could be based on a common intellectual heritage. So one thing would be Neoplatonism, and Platonism in general is a hugely important factor in the history of mysticism, at least in the sort of Western worlds and Middle East and Europe. And in a lot of cases, I think we can trace those similarities to a movement like Neoplatonism or Hermeticism and similar roots in that sense. But if we take that same question and extend it to places like China, like the Taoist authors also have very similar ideas. So I don't know. Maybe there is, like, the second option would be that there is some kind of universal human experience that all of these people are tapping into and are explaining through different means and different languages. And that's a very attractive idea. I don't know if I'm ready to endorse it completely, but that is definitely one option. Nicola Frau asks, will you make videos on different Buddhist currents? I really want to. My knowledge on Buddhism is limited compared to other religions, but I really want to dive into Buddhism. Particularly, I want to talk about some aspects of Mahayana Buddhism, like the Tian Tai school and some of those less known movements within Buddhism. That's a general kind of tendency on this channel, that I want to highlight lesser known, more obscure figures or schools of thought. So I want to do that. I also, in general, for the future of this channel, it's a good time to talk about that now, I guess, is that I want to expand what we're doing here on this channel. I want to, eventually, when this pandemic dies down, God willing, I want to be able to travel and do more ambitious kind of documentary style videos without losing the genetic code of what I'm doing right now, but still like with more original B-roll and documentary style footage from the places that I'm actually talking about. That's one of the things I'm really looking forward to doing. But also I'm and this is something that you'll have to have a say on as well, but I want to bring in scholars to do either write episodes or even host episodes on the channel on topics that they are more qualified to speak on than I am, because even though I have studied religion generally, I have a certain amount of knowledge about religion. I have specialized in certain areas. I've specialized in Islam and in Sufism. I don't know as much about Buddhism, for example, at all. I don't know anything about indigenous African religions. And so for me to make videos on that would require a whole lot of research. And I would love to collaborate on projects like that with people who are a lot more experienced. So in various ways, I really want to expand the scope of this channel in the future. Joy Paisano you're a Naqshbandi Muslim. That's great. I hope you found my video on the Naqshbandiya. I hope you found that was a fair representation of your tradition. Are you a spiritually realized man? No, definitely not. I try my best to live my life according to the values and ideals that I hold dear, but I would not call myself spiritually realized in any way. Taha Waqar, have you ever had a surreal spiritual experience? I mean, kind of, but the nature of all such experiences are always that you can't really talk about them in plain language, so I don't know what the purpose. I could say that there was one instance when I was in Venice, I saw a duck landing in the water, and I sort of entered a weird trance-like state, but I can't talk about what that was like, because it sounds silly when you just say it like that, but there are certain experiences like that, but words can't never do them justice, really. Would you call yourself a cultural Christian? I usually do, I guess. But that's also kind of it's a weird term. Because at the end of the day, if you're a cultural Christian, are you really a Christian? A lot of different questions come up when you start saying things like that. But sometimes I do call myself a cultural Christian. Let me see if I can find. What's your opinion on the idea of Orientalism? Well, I think Edward Said's book, Orientalism, is one of the most important pieces of literature from the 20th century, and I think every academic today, that's like required reading for everyone, especially if you're the kind of scholar who talks about the Middle East, or, well, in particular the Middle East. So I think that's a very important book, but also a very important movement generally in academia to try to represent the Middle East in a more fair way and a more less problematic way than what was the case previously. Let's see. Are you interested in reviewing books on religious satire, for example, Small Gods by Terry Pratchett? I haven't heard about that book, but that sounds interesting. I'm basically open to anything. I think I'm the kind of person who's interested in most things in this world. And so I'm definitely open to it, but that's sort of a new subject to me. Naxer asks, do you think Islam is oppressive? No, I mean, religions, I would never make generalizing statements about any religions like that. I think people are oppressive sometimes, some people are not. Some Muslims can be oppressive, some are not. Like, it really is people who make up a religion, and people are different. So that's my position on that. What are your thoughts on Dan Gibson's work? So Dan Gibson is the one, he's the guy who talks about Mecca being in Petra, right? That's the, I don't know, like I think all, how do I put this? I think all theories and ideas are welcome. I think it's healthy to ask questions and to try to even ask the difficult questions and even look at very established historical narratives from critical perspectives. That one in particular I'm not so convinced about, because I think that many of the sort of revisionist school of Islamic studies, although I admire a lot of those scholars, they also tend to take it, in my opinion, to the extreme. And also, I don't see why one should be so skeptical of the narratives from within the Islamic tradition. Like, that seems kind of not bigoted necessarily, but that's like, why wouldn't the early Muslims know what they're talking about? Like, why would they just make stuff up in that way? I think that comes from a kind of Orientalist, speaking of Orientalism, that comes from a kind of skeptical Orientalist position, in a way of not being able to trust the sources from within the religion and just coming up with entirely new theories without consulting that tradition. I think the better option is to be somewhere in between, to ask difficult questions, but not to discard the traditional narrative completely because of that. Will you talk about Ahmadi Muslims? Yes, I will. I might. So there is a group of Ahmadiyya here in Sweden. I might try to contact them and do a more documentary style video on that. I don't know, but that's definitely on my to-do list. What's your favorite piece of Sufi poetry? That's a good question. I don't know, because there's so much. The problem with that is that so much of that is inaccessible to me in the original language. And poetry by nature kind of is so bound up with the language in which it is written. I don't know Persian, so I can't read Rumi in Persian, and I can't read Attar in Persian, or Sadi or Hafez even. I do know a little Arabic, and so I do have diwans by Tilimsani, Afifuddin Tilimsani, or Ibn Arabi, Shushtari. I don't actually have his poetry necessarily, but so the Arabic poetry is more accessible to me, even though my Arabic is very limited. But if I have a lexicon with me, I can sort of get through that stuff. And so I've been really into the Arabic poets in particular. I really love Shushtari and Ibn Arabi, obviously. Since I've been talking so much about him, I really appreciate Ibn al-Farid. Is a classic, but also in translation, like I think Fakhruddin Iraqi's Lama'at is one of the most beautiful pieces of, that's both prose and poetry, as well as Shabistari's Gulshan Raz. And again, I've only read those in translation, but those are just some amazing pieces of poetry, even in translation. You seem to be interested in Islam. Have you looked into Sharia law in the same way you have for all the sects in Islam? What are your thoughts on it? I wouldn't call Sharia law a sect in Islam necessarily. That's sort of an aspect of Islam. I don't have a general opinion about Sharia. That's just it's a central part of the Islamic religion, and it's vast and varied, and there are different schools of fiqh in Sharia. I don't know. I don't have an opinion. I think one can certainly admire the development of the jurisprudence in the Islamic world, because it's a very rigorous tradition of law, and for its time was pretty progressive also in certain respects. But I don't know. It's I don't have any general opinion about that stuff really. It's interesting. I did a video on Sharia, on the origins of Sharia. I took it down. It's privated not because I said stuff I didn't agree with, but I just felt like I could do that video much better. And it was very much focused on Sunni law in particular. And I would like, if I was to tackle fiqh and law and the Sharia, I would want to do that in a more comprehensive way in the future. Will you do a video on new religious movements? Azerim, yes. I look forward to doing that stuff too. And that's the kind of stuff you can do more documentary style videos on once the pandemic settles. But yeah, I sometimes I feel like this channel is too focused on old obscure philosophers from the Middle Ages, and so I try to make topics or make videos on topics that are more relevant to well, not that those aren't relevant, but about things that are happening right now, and there is so much interesting stuff with new religious movements that I would love to tackle in the future. I did shoot a video a few years ago from like a convention here in Stockholm, so a New Age convention. I took a bunch of footage and I never really did anything with it. So I might incorporate that into a video in the future. But there's a lot of that going on here, at least. Yeah, that's a whole ocean of stuff. Karaite juice. Yeah, sure. I know so little about it that that's gonna have to be in the future, but definitely, like, all of your suggestions are great, and I would love to do most of that stuff. I just need to make the time to do the research. I have a long list of videos that I want to do, including many of your suggestions. But I can only do one video at a time. But I appreciate all your suggestions, and I do write them down most of the time, so keep them coming. Yes, Imam Ahmed Rida Khan. That's, yeah, again, yes, I'll probably get there in the future. Some of these figures, I would love to do, and I've wanted to do a video on Mullah Sadra, for example, for so long. And that's one of the most requested video topics on this entire channel. So many people have continuously been like, where is the video on Mullah Sadra? And I want to do that. But that's one of those videos where I feel like if I'm going to talk about Mullah Sadra, I need to talk about Ibn Arabi and Ibn Sina and Suhrawardi first. And I've only talked about Ibn Arabi and Ibn Sina. And I might even want to redo the Ibn Sina episode. But before I do Mullah Sadra, I will have to do Suhrawardi, for example, because Mullah Sadra is so based on interpreting those earlier thinkers that you need to sort of lay the groundwork before you can get there. So in some cases, when it comes to these topics, it's just a matter of me not having having to do one video at a time. But sometimes it's also a matter of wanting to do things in a bit of a chronological way for it to make as much sense as possible. What do you think about the scientific inaccuracies in religions? I don't know, that's a difficult topic. I am generally a supporter of of science, and if something is proven according to science, then I tend to follow that as part of my worldview. But religions are pretty good at adapting to new scientific findings and developments. You know, a common question is like, what would happen to religions if aliens came to Earth? And that depends on the religion, of course. But I think you've all heard of Reza Aslan, right? You can have whatever opinion you want about him, but sometimes he says pretty interesting stuff. And so he was asked that question, and he said, you know, that if aliens came to Earth, then religions will take that information and incorporate it and move on. Like, it will not destroy religion. Religions have an amazing ability to adapt and change with the times, and that's not going to stop anytime soon. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Wahhabism, again, I already answered that question. I will be making videos on that stuff. What do I think of Zarathustra? I like Zarathustra. I think he's an incredibly important figure in the history of religion and in the history of philosophy. I made a video on Zoroastrianism, and some of those ideas that seems to have been introduced by Zarathustra, the dualistic theology, the idea of a day of judgment and heaven and hell and so on, seems to originate from a historical perspective, right? Seems to originate from Zoroastrianism and from the teachings of, to some degree, of Zarathustra. And so Zoroastrianism is such an important religion for the history of religion generally, because it is the source from which so much of the major components of some of the major religions today come from. And not only in terms of religion, but also in philosophy, the Persians were a huge inspiration for certain Greek thinkers and so on. So Zarathustra is a significant, albeit not too well known, figure in history. A lot of questions. I'm just trying to thoughts on life after death. I'm not opening that can of worms. I'm not going to act like I have any answers to that question. Any tips you would give small YouTubers? Just keep going, man. Just like keep making videos. One suggestion is like to try to be as consistent as possible. I started this channel over 3 years ago now. That's 2018. And just 1 year ago, like around the turn of the like New Year's, I had like 200 subscribers. So for the first 2 years, I had accumulated 200 subscribers. And then now, a year later, we're at 100,000. And I think one of the things that helped in that increase in numbers was the fact that I started to be more consistent with my postings. I would try to do at least once every 2 weeks, or sometimes even every week, try to do a video. And I think that helped with the algorithms and whatnot. So I would say just keep going, and hopefully eventually things start to look up. Comparison video between Ibn Arabi and Shankara, Advaita Vedanta. It's inevitable that I will someday make that kind of video, I guess. Because I do kind of I don't really make comparisons, but I talk about that in both of those videos. So I mentioned Shankara in the Ibn Arabi video, and I mentioned Ibn Arabi in the Shankara video. Because there are so many similarities, not only between them, but also with Meister Eckhart and Johnson and so on. There's a book, oh no, I don't remember the author of the book, but it's called Path to Transcendence, and it basically compares Ibn Arabi, Meister Eckhart, and Shankara, and their different monistic ideas, because there are so many similarities. Will you ever share your music? I shared my music the other day. Many people ask about the music, about the background music in my videos. Most of the videos use my own background, my own music. So I've composed certain music specifically to have as background music in my videos. The intro music to my the Making of the Muslim World, the Making the Muslim World series is also my own composition. So all of that is, I try to make my own music as much as possible, and all of that is available, most of it is available on Spotify under my name, Philip Hall, if any of you want to check it out. I also shared the other day a song by a project of mine called Zini, which is sort of a band, but not really a band. I don't know what's going on with that, but it's a project that aims more specifically to mix different genres and to explore different musical cultures from around the world, and have them sort of meet and commingle in a sort of weird soup of great music. So but I will, like, as soon as I release a new song or something, I'll let you guys know if you're interested. What sect would you be if you were Muslim? I don't know. If I knew that, I probably would be one of those. You guys can probably tell that I admire Sufis. I like the ideas of some Sufis. I don't know. I don't know what to answer, how to answer that question without you guys misinterpreting me or me sounding like I say something strange. So I'll avoid that. Please make a video on Vaishnavism. Yes. So I did my video on Shankara and Advaita Vedanta, and a natural follow-up to that is the video on Ramanuja and his Vishishta Advaita, which is intimately connected to Vaishnavism. Like, that's, according to some at least, that's the mainstream theology of Vaishnavism. I will also be making videos on Shaivism, in particular Kashmir Shaivism and Abhinavagupta and Lal Ded. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's a female poet who lived in Kashmir. She belonged to the Kashmir Shaivism tradition. Just an amazing personality. And so all of that is, again, I want to talk about everything, but those are some things that I have planned at least pretty soon. So many comments. I'm trying to keep up here. Please make a video on... It disappeared. A lot of you want me to forgot how to speak. A lot of you want me to make videos on Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, the founder of the Qadri order, and that's definitely also something that I plan to do. I did a video on the Naqshbandi order. I did one on the Ni'matullahi order, and those, you guys really seem to appreciate those videos, and so I will keep making videos about different Sufi orders. I want to do one on the Shadhili order, on the Shishtiya, and of course on the Qadriya. And in that video, I will be, like, when we talk about the Qadriya, that's what we'll talk about most of the time, is Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, who's the sort of founder of that tradition. Maybe we could do like a poll sometime. Maybe I could do a poll on my Patreon page about like which Sufi order should I tackle next, because that is, after all, my primary field of expertise and something that I love talking about. So more Sufism is coming, whether you like it or not. Do you have plans for doing a video on Ibn Taymiyyah? Yes. I stated that earlier as well. I will be. I am currently researching the video on Ibn Taymiyyah. Have you read the Quran? Yeah. Not in the original language. I've only read some of the shortest surahs in Arabic, but other than that, I've read it in translation. I don't think I've read the entire thing because I haven't read it like from front to back, but more sporadically. But I've read, I would say, most of the Quran. Like if you study Islam to the degree that someone like me does, like how could you not read the Quran? That's like it's at the core of the whole thing. Do a video on Akbar and his religion, Deen Ilahi. Again, yes, I haven't tackled the Mughal period at all, actually. And that is, like, especially in terms of Sufism, there is so much interesting stuff there. Akbar, Dara Shikoh, and Aurangzeb. Dara Shikoh in particular, and his for those who don't know, Dara Shikoh was a Mughal prince. He was the great-grandson of Akbar, and he was a Sufi, practicing Sufi. He wrote some really great treatises, including a book called The Compass of Truth, which sort of explicates the doctrine of the unity of being, Wahdat al-Wujud. But he also wrote a book called the Majma' al-Bahrain, which means the meeting or mingling of the two oceans, referring to Islam and Hinduism. And so what he would do is he would study the Upanishads and talk to various Hindu sages, and he would hold the opinion that what the Hindus say is basically the same, at least in its core aspects. It's the same as what we're talking about in Islam, especially as understood through Sufism. And so he would try to, in this book in particular, he would try to sort of have these two traditions meet, and then he was executed by his brother Aurangzeb, unfortunately. What made you study Islam? That's a very good question. I've always been interested in the sort of the Middle East in general. I've always had a kind of a love for the aesthetics and just the culture there in general has always intrigued me. I guess that's one aspect of it, but I think the primary reason why I started getting, like, specializing in Islam in particular was because there was so much misinformation about Islam. Because I had grown up in a area in Sweden, in Stockholm, that was very multicultural, and basically the majority of my friends, I would say, at least a good amount of my friends growing up, were Muslims. And I would hang out with them, and I would spend time in their homes with their families and so on. And then once I got out into the wider world and realized there was so much prejudice against Muslims and racism and bigotry and really like misinformation, because the version of Islam that was presented to me or that people were talking about did not correspond to my experiences growing up at all. And so that sort of sparked a wish in me to sort of try to understand better that perhaps that religion in particular, and or in order to help change that narrative that is so negative today about Islam. And again, at least that's one of, I think there are many different reasons and factors that led to my decision to specialize in that in particular, but that's definitely one aspect. Is there any logic behind the beard on your face? Probably not, no. It's just kind of there. I don't really do anything with it. I just let it grow. Sometimes I trim it, sometimes I cut it. And I don't know, the logic of beards, that's an interesting topic. I think I just look so young. I look younger than I want to look if I don't have the beard, so I try to keep it on. Maybe I should do like a beardless face reveal when we reach 500,000 or something. Although you can find videos of me without the beard from a couple of years ago. Hej! Du från Danmark. Mojtaba. Trevligt att ha dig här. Do you see yourself converting to Islam? Not anytime soon. I don't have any plans to. Nordic mysticism. I mean, Nordic religion in general sounds like a natural fit for me because I'm from Sweden and I talk about religion, so I should naturally talk about Nordic religions. If you want a recommendation, there's a great channel. I suppose many of you have heard of Jackson Crawford on YouTube. He's just amazing. He's an American, and he's an expert in Norse, like the language primarily, but also generally like the culture and religion of ancient Norse or in the ancient Nordic peoples. And his entire video is just him standing in front of beautiful mountains in Colorado and talking about Thor. It's like the most amazing thing. Upload into podcast. Yes, I mean, I've definitely thought about that, about doing a podcast. I don't know if I have the time to do a podcast. These videos are enough as it is. But I think this stuff could also work very well in podcast form. So that's something I've been thinking about, definitely. Would you guys want a podcast? Do you guys really want me to do a podcast? Because I'll definitely consider it. When is your next video? On Thursday, I'm releasing a video on Spinoza's God, which should be interesting. And then I do a video on Sufism on Sunday, God willing. And then I am writing a video about the Taibi Ismailis, like the Daoudi Boras and the Soleimani Taibis. I've also started to work on a video about pre-Islamic Arabia and the religions of pre-Islamic Arabia, which I don't know when that's going to come up, but I've started working on that. And then as I said, I'm researching various stuff like the video on Ibn Taymiyyah, for example. There's a lot of stuff coming. Jason Harris, first, congrats, thank you. Second, do you think religion is entirely a human construct or have actually touched on spiritual worlds from time to time throughout existence? Well, I am of the opinion that religions are social constructs, that people create religions. That does not necessarily mean that there can't be truths within or that are expressed in those religions, and that people have experienced some spark of that truth that has inspired certain things within religions. I am definitely open to that idea, but religions in terms of certain practices or beliefs and institutionalized communities or practices, I am of the opinion that those are, for the most part, social constructs. Are you going to write a book? I would like to write a book. I don't know what I'll write a book on yet. but definitely in the future. Kodo Aslan, please do more movie reviews like you did on Snyder's Batman vs Superman. Oh, so you're the guy who watched that video. I appreciate that. That was kind of fun to make. I did a video that was like a year ago, where I had looked at some what I consider to be Christian imagery and symbolism in the movie Batman vs Superman. And it's not one of my more successful videos, but it's a fun little thing. I've definitely thought about doing more pop culture videos. I did one on Assassin's Creed the other week, and I would love to do more stuff like that. Like if there's a video game or movie that comes out that deals with a certain religion or aspects of religion in some way, I could, for example, do a review of that film or video games, the way that film or video game portrays religion or a specific religion, for example. I think that could be really interesting, because religion is often so badly portrayed in pop culture, I would say. So many questions. Trying to pick a good one. Thoughts on Sikhism? I love Sikhism. I think Sikhism is such a fascinating tradition. And I've held off on doing videos on Sikhism. So here's the thing, right? When I started this channel, I wanted as much as possible. I really haven't upheld this ideal, but I wanted originally for people from a certain religious tradition to represent themselves, and for it not to be just some European guy. Because you see all these documentaries about India, and there's a British guy walking around in India talking about what Indians are like, or Indian religion. And it's always like that. It's always the white person who explains, who portrays the other people. And I wanted for people from certain religious traditions to be able to represent themselves. That didn't really happen because I've become sort of the face of this channel in a way, and I talk about most of these subjects. But I was in contact with a group of Sikhs in Stockholm prior to the pandemic, and I wanted to do a documentary on Sikhism rather than just a regular video like the other videos I've done. But then the pandemic happened. That hasn't happened. But I think Sikhism, I will have to do a video on Sikhism in one way or the other eventually. Who would win in a fight, Muhammad or Buddha? Or let's talk with, I'm not going to touch that one. So do you believe humans evolved from apes? Well, generally, I think that the theory of evolution is a good theory for the origins of the human race. I'll put it like that. It is a theory that I generally accept as being probably true. How did Islam or the studying of Islam affect you as a person? I don't know. I think it made me a more open, understanding person. I think that's the general idea of this channel, that information and knowledge leads to better understanding and better opportunities for conversation and tolerance, for example. And I think studying different religions has helped me become a more open and better person, including Islam. Islam in particular. That's a difficult question. If that in particular has affected me in some way, I'm sure it has. I'll have to think about that one. But generally, I think it's made me a more open and accepting person. DMT will show you. What's it gonna show me? I haven't smoked DMT, and I don't have any plans to at the moment. Have you ever read about Aztec philosophy? Not really. Like, that is a field that I am very much in the dark about, but I've wanted to for so long. I know nothing about it. Like, I know some like Quetzalcoatl, the serpent god, and I know about the sacrifices. Like, I really don't know much about that stuff at all. So I look forward to reading about that. Please do a video on monkey god. So is that like a reference to Hanuman in Hinduism, for example? I had a discussion with someone, I don't remember who it was, but the idea was like, what if I made videos on particular gods? Like in different mythologies. But I don't think that's necessarily within the scope of what I do on this channel. I think that's more, there are great mythology channels on YouTube that make those kinds of videos. I'll definitely bring up those kinds of gods. Like Hanuman is an important god in Hinduism. Like, he will come up naturally. How do you study? Do you have any teacher or guide? I mean, yeah, of course I had teachers. I studied at university for the better part of a decade, this sort of stuff. And I had many great teachers and professors. I don't have like a guru or a sheikh in the spiritual sense, if that's what you're asking. But teachers, definitely. We all need teachers. We can't do this stuff on our own. Even if Ibn Tufayl claims that we can in Hay ibn Yaqsan, I don't necessarily buy that. So my sound is only on the left side? Yeah, that looks like that's true. That's strange. I'll have to. So this is the first time I'm doing kind of a live stream like this. So it's kind of I learn as I go. I'm not as experienced with this. So if I don't think I can fix that sound problem at the moment, but I'll try to fix that for next time. This is kind of fun, actually. I would love to do more live streams in the future. So how long have I been streaming now? Where can I see that? Oh, almost an hour. Okay, so we're not going to be going for that much longer. I actually have a video to record. So I'm sure you can forgive me for not staying too long. Would you ever do a video on Neoplatonism? Yes. I had this conversation with my wife today. I said I really want to do a video on Plotinus and Neoplatonism, but I have to justify to myself, why does that belong on a channel about religion? Because he's mostly considered a philosopher. But I think there's a natural connection there, because Neoplatonism is so important for the theology and philosophy of some of the major religions like Christianity and Islam. At least certain aspects of that or those religions have been so influenced by Neoplatonism as well as Judaism. I think that kind of clears me, right? That because I really want to do that video. The Armenian Apostolic Church, yeah, I mean generally Eastern, like Orthodox Christianity, I want to do stuff about. Hesychasm, Gregory Palamas, all that good stuff. So I think I'm gonna start to end this stream. If you guys want to see me do more streams like this, you just let me know, because now I know kind of how to do it, so we can do more in the future. I'm so happy that many of you showed up today. I wasn't expecting so many to show up, and the fact that you keep watching this channel. As I said, I started this channel almost 3 years ago, with the aim of trying to spread more scholarly and academic content about religion on the internet, because the stuff that was there was so terrible. Like this, most of the content about these subjects are not good at all. Since I've started this channel, there has been some really great new channels that have appeared, but nonetheless, I really wanted to do my part to change that environment and to spread knowledge about a subject that is so often misunderstood, in order to help people get a better grasp of the complexity of the subject, but also to understand what other people think and how they practice and what they do, and through that be able to start conversations. And also, as Zevi in Seekers of Unity pointed out so well, it has also been one of my main agendas to give certain religious traditions the respect that they deserve, because we live in a post-Enlightenment world where religions are often looked down upon. Everything pre-Enlightenment is seen as something irrational and like the Dark Ages, and we were ignorant, and now we're enlightened and we know what we're talking about, right? But that's just not the case. It's so well exemplified by the fact that when we talk about philosophy, for example, things have gotten better in the last few decades, but it's still kind of a paradigm where we talk about the Greeks, we talk about Socrates and Plato and Aristotle and maybe the Stoics and maybe Plotinus, and then we kind of skip 1,000 years and we start again at the Renaissance or even the Enlightenment. There's a whole 1,000 years of development there that is so important, and the fact that thinkers within religious traditions have contributed significantly to the intellectual history, and can offer us things even today. And I think that's also one of the things that I wanted to do with many of these videos, where when I talk about many of these thinkers, is to highlight that people in the Middle Ages weren't stupid. Like, they didn't believe these things because they were ignorant. They're actually very intelligent people with developed and very deep philosophical or theological views, and that I wanted, in that sense, to give it the respect that it deserves. I hope that, and it seems that this channel has provided a kind of community for conversation about religion that is on a much better level. We can understand each other much better. As I said in the beginning, I'm so also thankful for the community that's been started in terms of the different creators here. I saw one of you in the chat, I think, but people like Dr. Justin Sledge and Zevi from Seekers of Unity, and Angela Puka, and even Andrew Henry from Religion for Breakfast, who I haven't worked with him yet, of course, but he's been like a pioneer here on YouTube, and he's been a great inspiration. and he has helped me out on several occasions. So like all these people, it's such a great community of people that are making fantastic content right now, and I'm so happy for that. Yeah, I think I'm gonna try to end it here. So I'll read some of your comments afterwards. I'm sorry I didn't get to all of your questions. There were so many questions. And I'll do more live streams like in this future. But I wanted to take this opportunity, now that we've reached 100,000 subscribers, to primarily to just thank you all for being here and for the fact that you keep showing up. Yeah, look forward to 2 videos this week and then more stuff in the future. So yeah, I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you on Thursday, not live, but in the future video. And I hope you guys have a great day and that you take care of yourselves and of each other. And I'll see you soon. Okay. Bye-bye.